Hey, friend, welcome back to the YouTube channel of the Renaissance English History Podcast. I am your host, Heather. I've been podcasting on Tudor England since 2009 with my show, which makes it the original Tudor podcast. This channel is where I put all of my episodes from all of my shows, as well as lots of extra content like this video right here. Today, we are going to talk about the dissolution of the monasteries. Very short. The dissolution of the monasteries is like a massive topic, right? Books, many books have been written about this. So we're not going to dig in deep, but we're going to do the short little skimming of it. And I have done fuller episodes on this through the years, especially back in 2017 when it was the 500th anniversary of the 95 Theses. I did a whole big series on the Reformation. I did a full episode on the Dissolution. I've done lots on Cromwell and the Dissolution. So if you want to dig in deeper to that, I'll put links to some of those episodes around below. Who knows? So we're going to talk today just a little bit about some of the famous priories and monasteries that were dissolved, as well as what happened to those monks and nuns whose livelihood was taken away. So let's get into it. Before we do, though, just a reminder that if you want more Tudor history in your YouTube feed, like duh, go ahead and hit subscribe so you never miss a video that I put out. So between 1536 and 1540, more than 800 religious houses across England were closed, stripped, and scattered. It was one of the most dramatic transformations in English religious life. And it wasn't just about breaking with Rome. Henry VIII wanted power, he wanted wealth, and Cromwell delivered both. Monasteries were more than places of prayer. They were hospitals, they were libraries, schools, homes, hotels for weary travelers. Their destruction wasn't a nice, clean little thing. It was loud, it was public, it was brutal. For generations, they had shaped the spiritual rhythm of English life, and suddenly they were just gone, dismantled brick by brick, altar by altar, with the king's blessing. Let's talk about some of the famous monasteries and abbeys that fell. We'll start with Glastonbury Abbey. Actually, people have noticed I have a lot of Glastonbury stuff around. Behind me, those are paintings of Glastonbury. I've got some cards that you can't see them, but whatever. I've got some paintings over here of Glastonbury. It's one of my favorite places. I love Glastonbury. And nowadays it has like this kind of woo-woo new agey feel to it, which is really cool too. It's this neat mix of like the woo-woo with the history. I really love it. It's one of my favorite places. Anyway, Glastonbury Abbey. It was ancient, wealthy, and steeped in legend. It was rumored to be the resting place of King Arthur. Its abbot, Richard Whitting, was in his 80s when Cromwell's commissioners came. He refused to surrender, and that sealed his fate. In 1539, he was dragged to Glastonbury Tor, which is the tower that I have paintings of back there. It's on a hill. This tower on a hill. He was hanged, drawn, and quartered as a traitor when he was in his 80s. Thank you very much. The abbey's treasures were seized, its library was scattered, and its sacred spaces left to rot. This was a sacrilege to many people, obviously. This went beyond politics. This was just sacrilegious. Then there was Fountains Abbey in Yorkshire, had been one of the wealthiest Cistercian houses in Europe. Its lands stretched for miles. Its buildings were grand. The monks surrendered in 1539 without any violence, but the abbey did not survive. The buildings were gutted, the valuables were hauled off, and the estate handed to one of Henry's men. Today, it stands in ruins, but the scale still impresses. Tintern Abbey, another one, was set in a river valley in Wales. It was dissolved in 1536. It was one of the earliest casualties of the dissolution. Initially, there was this idea that they would just do the most corrupt houses or the smallest, the ones that weren't really making a profit. But then it moved on to just everything. Like they didn't really have a process for it. It was just kind of like, oh, there's money here, there's wealth, it's an abbey or a monastery. Let's just get rid of it. So there wasn't really any kind of method to it at all. So Tintern was one of the first ones. Its monastic life ended quietly. The ruins survived. By the 18th century, it had become a favorite subject for poets and painters, transformed from a spiritual center into a symbol of picturesque decay. Waltham Abbey had royal connections and deep historic roots. It was said to be the house of the tomb of Harold Godwinson. It closed in 1540. Its buildings They survived for a while, but over time they were also dismantled. And the final one we'll mention is Lewes Priory. It wasn't just dissolved, it was obliterated. Cromwell's agents used gunpowder to destroy what remained, leaving very little behind. It was one of the most dramatic erasures of a religious house. So, what happened to all of the people who were living there, the monks and the nuns? Well, for the monks, there were a couple of different options. What happened next depended on your age, your rank, and your obedience. Abbots who cooperated were often rewarded with very generous pensions. Some lived out their days in relative comfort, but the average monk, especially the younger ones, got far, far less. Many were given just very small stipends and told to fend for themselves. A few found work as schoolmasters or chaplains. Some tried to carry on their religious lives privately, or they became secular clergy under the new Church of England. Others simply vanished into lay life, taking up farming or a trade. For men who had spent decades in quiet routine, the upheaval was jarring and often humiliating. Not everyone went quietly. A handful of abbots refused to surrender their houses. Like we said with Glastonbury, they were arrested, tried for treason, and executed. In addition to Glastonbury's Richard Whitting, there was also Reading's Hugh Cook, Colchester's John Betch. They died as criminals in the eyes of the crown, martyrs to some, rebels to others. Now, nuns had a very different outcome. They were in a much worse position because they were not eligible for full pensions. And they also, because they were nuns, they weren't allowed to marry under their church law. With no roles left in a reformed church for them, they often had to go live with relatives. They gathered in informal communities of ex-nuns. A few appealed for housing support. Most faded from the record, their lives effectively erased. Friars were the most vulnerable, especially the Franciscan friars. They were left absolutely destitute. Their orders did not own property, so they had nothing to fall back on. Some begged, some preached quietly, others just disappeared completely. There was no safety net for them at all. Now, this is just talking about the monks and the nuns. Then there were the communities that they served, these people who had relied on these houses of worship, on these monastic houses for centuries. They were, like I said, the schools, the hospitals. They gave out alms to the poor. They were an essential part of the community. And suddenly Henry just sold off their land and the buildings to the highest bidder. So his henchmen, his people who were loyal to him, got to buy all of those buildings. And this is right when the wool trade is starting to take off even more too and become more profitable. So they started enclosing all the lands to graze sheep. So all of this common land was gone. And certainly those people weren't about to start handing out alms or provide the same services that the monasteries had before. So it was a real gap, a real hole for people in their communities. And it took a long time to figure out who was going to replace those services and how they were going to be replaced. So it was a massive period of transition for towns and villages that had relied on these spaces. So, a massive upheaval for people all around so that Henry could have more money and land and wealth and power and be in charge of the church. Anyway, the ruins of many of these monasteries still stand, but the people are gone. Of course, the monks, the nuns, the friars didn't just lose their buildings. They lost communities, they lost vocations, and they lost purpose. Cromwell's reform wasn't about power or profit. It was about control. And it left behind a country that had been spiritually uprooted piece by piece, stone by stone. So there we have it. A little bit about the dissolution of the monasteries and some of how people were affected by it. If you made it this far in the video and you enjoyed it, I sure would appreciate a press of that like button. It helps to feed the algorithm and get our videos to even more people. And I hope I earned your subscription to my channel where I put out videos like this on the regular. If you would like to dig in deeper to the Dissolution, here's that episode I did on the Dissolution during Reformation Month, the celebration I did in 2017. So you can do that. Or here's a video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Thank you so much for being here. Remember, you are deeply loved. I am so glad that I shared the planet with you. I'll be back very soon. Don't forget to drink your water, friend. Okay, bye-bye.